What's up? How's you guys doing? All right, let's try that again. It's the last day of school. Y'all don't got to go to school tomorrow. How you guys doing? Y'all must love school, because I'd have way much more energy than that. So today we get to continue our series that we kicked off last week called Good Vibes Only. Actually, last week, if you guys missed it, we had a special guest come out to bring a message, a good friend of mine, and he killed it. But he kind of opened up this series called Good Vibes Only. And the interesting about this series is that we don't want you to, we're tackling a lot of these cliches, right? So even the name of this series, Good Vibes Only, is not something we want you to live your life by, which sounds crazy. But what we want to do is replace a lot of these cliches that people say with truth and what we should really do as far as how we live our life. So I'm going to jump right into it. Before I jump into it, I just want to go ahead and pray really quick. So let's just bow our heads and pray one more time, and then we'll get into the message. I won't be up here too long, so let's just bow our heads. God, first and foremost, thank you for every student in this room. God, I thank you for just getting us here safely with all the crazy weather and stuff like that. God, I ask that you just speak to me speak through me as I bring this message to your people, your students, and let it be a message that impacts their hearts, impacts their minds, so they can impact the world around them and be that light that this world needs so desperately. And it's your precious name that we pray. Amen. All right, so I get to talk about the very old saying, the very old cliche that I'm sure you guys have heard before. If you guys know it, say it with me once I get started. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never harm me or hurt me, however the heck you want to say it. So, obviously, how many of you guys know that to be true? Hopefully no hands up. How many of you guys know that's fake and we shouldn't live by that? Okay, cool. Majority of hands, which is what I expected. But the thing about cliches is cliches are only cliches because people don't actually live it out. So even though we know this is something that is not true, even though we know this is something that is absolutely false, even though we understand that words can be hurtful, sadly, a lot of us don't actually put that into practice, thus making it a cliche. Because cliches aren't just things that people say a lot, but cliches are also things that people say a lot and don't do. Because if they do it, then it's not really cliche. And I get to talk about exactly that. Because if we think about it in our own lives, and if we're being real, sometimes we don't realize the power and the weight that our words carry. How many of you guys have ever been hurt by words? And that should be everybody's hand in this room. We've all been hurt by words, from whether it be our friends, whether it be our family. Sometimes our family is the number one source of those words even too. And sometimes also us as well, we forget that we can hurt people with our words. And that's more so what I want to focus on, is how can we as Christians, how can we as people who go to church and say they want to be on Jesus' team, how can we be more careful and not making sure that this is not just a cliche, but it's something that we can actually live our life by, understanding the weight of our words. And like I said, it's going to be very quick. I have kind of three things, but before I get to that, actually, when I talk about your words, right? Some of you guys may be like, oh, no, I don't say anything bad. My words are always nice and welcoming. I'm going to pose this question to you. If I said, hey, let me check out your group chat. See, everybody was like, no, not my group chat. But we talk a lot of trash in there, guys, girls, same thing. If someone were to ask you about your group chat, right, all the stuff that you guys are saying in there, is it 100% positive? Probably not. Probably not. I'll say some of mine aren't as well too. But those are words the same way we speak our words. And we send messages when we comment stuff on social media, whether it's under our friend's post or some random person's post, those matter as well too. It's not just the words that we say out loud, but it's also the words that we say on social media, the words that we say in our group chats, the words that we say as jokes. How many of us have made fun of our friends before, just out of the fun of it? It should be everybody again. Sometimes we do it for fun, right? We do it for fun. We just make fun of our friends, and we do. I mean, I don't know if you guys still do this. This might age the heck out of me, but we used to do your mama jokes. That was a lot of fun. I'm not going to say any right now. But we joke, right? We joke, and we don't realize the weight that our words carry. But I want you guys to think about those words as well, too. It's not just bullying somebody and being mean to them, but it could be jokes. It could be group chat conversations. It could be stuff that we put on Instagram. It could be stuff that we comment on TikTok. Are we being accountable or we should be accountable for every word that we say? So the first point that I have that I'll get into, and actually before even that, sorry, I keep skipping over stuff. All the verses that I read today are from the book of Proverbs. How many of you guys have ever heard of the book of Proverbs? A couple of you guys, not enough of you guys. I recommend anybody ever to read the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs was actually the very first book that I read back when I was you guys' age. There's literally 31 chapters. You can read one proverb per day, and you'll be done with a book in a month. But the thing that I love about Proverbs is that there's so much wisdom found in Proverbs. The person who wrote Proverbs was actually the wisest man to ever live. There's nobody been more wiser than this man outside of like Jesus. And he wrote this to give advice to people. So when you read Proverbs, they're literally words of advice for us to use in this world. So every single verse is from Proverbs. Now we'll get to my first point finally. So my first point is say less. Say less. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying the slang term as far as say less. But when it comes to our words, sometimes what happens is we don't have that mindset of controlling our words. And what happens is if we don't take a moment to pause, a moment to stop and think about our words, sometimes we could catch ourselves saying things we didn't really mean. Or we catch ourselves saying things that we know we shouldn't have said. But when you truly think about your words, what happens is, instead of having to say this super long thing or the super weird thing, what happens is we can slow ourselves down and control every single word that we say. And if you're controlling every single word that you say, you can say the most powerful thing in 2 words instead of saying the most damaging thing in only 10. And I encourage you guys to be more powerful. And we're going to read a verse right now. In Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19, it says this. It says, sin does not end by multiplying words, but the prudent, or in other words, the wise, hold their tongue. So sometimes even too, we try to talk ourselves out of situations. And what happens when we talk ourselves out of situations is we end up in a place where our words, and we don't even know what we're saying anymore. How many of you guys have ever been there? Where you're having a conversation, somebody raise their hand up quick. But we've all been there before. Where we're talking to someone that we know, or we're talking to someone that we don't know. We don't even realize the words that are coming out of our mouth and the impact that they can have on somebody. And I think if we're really smart with our words, if we're very strategic with our words, like I said, we have better control of that. If I told you to kind of wrangle all together like 10 little baby kittens, right? They're all really cute. They're all really nice. But wrangling 10 into like a nice little cool little pin or whatever you want to call it is way harder than just wrangling like 2. And in the same way, if you find yourself rambling or if you find yourself talking, I don't want to say you can't talk too much. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying it's so important that we're able to control the words that come out of our mouth, every single word that comes out of our mouth. So that's my first point. Say less. My second point, I'm going to go really fast. And this is where I'm going to slow down a little bit. My second point is seek full truth. Seek full truth. And for that, I'm going to read another Proverbs verse, Proverbs chapter 12, verse 19. And it says this, truthful lips endure forever. Or you could say truthful words if that helps you make sense of it more. But a lying tongue or lying words last only a moment. And the reason that I say seek full truth is because sometimes when we have conversations or we hear something, we only hear parts of stories or parts of people's lives. And I think sometimes what happens is they could lead us to a place where if we just take a small snippet of what somebody said or a small snippet of what somebody's said about somebody else or even a small snippet about what somebody said about us, it can turn into this crazy thing that is so toxic and so damaging. And I think it's so important that whenever we're having conversations, and specifically we're going to talk about gossip in a little bit, it's so important for us to understand the full scope of what was said. Sometimes even too, we live in a world where, of course, there's Instagram captions, there's small captions added on TikTok videos, and we're used to kind of this small little thing, and we don't get the full picture of what's going on in a situation or what's going on in a person's life. Because sometimes even too, I've been in situations, maybe you can relate to this, is maybe there's a person in your class, or you guys are out of school now, but maybe there was someone in your class who's kind of that weird, quiet kid, right? And everyone kind of stays away from them. And they say they don't want to be around them or to avoid them. But you don't know the full truth of what that person deals with on a day-to-day basis. Maybe they're so quiet because when they go home, there's so much chaos and stuff. They've been accustomed to becoming this quiet person in their shell. Maybe they need someone like you to bring that out of them. It's so important we're able to understand the full truth of people's lives, the full truth of what people go to. Because again, when we only know small parts, it can lead us to a place where we're saying things that maybe we shouldn't. But also more so, we're going to read another verse right now in Proverbs chapter 26. And this is specifically about gossip. And it says in chapter 26, verse 20, it says, "Without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down." So, I think we're all old enough to understand and realize that we've been in situations where gossips have been spread, whether it's spread about you or spread about someone in your friend group or spread about someone who you barely even know. And what happens is, a lot of times, where gossip comes from is it comes from situations where people don't know the full story or people don't know the full truth, but they know pieces. They know pieces of what happened, or they know pieces of what this person is like, or they know pieces of whatever it is. And what happens is you go and tell this person a little piece of that, and that piece just gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And one thing I want you guys to realize, and this is for guys and girls alike, because sometimes we like to feel like only girls gossip, only girls do that, but guys gossip just the same, and gossip is a sin. If you've never heard that before, gossip is a sin. If you're spreading gossip, I hate to say it, but you're sinning. And I'll say this, I have been a part of gossip before. I've shared gossip. I've also allowed gossip to happen. That verse that we just read, it talked about how it kind of used this analogy of a fire and then also relating it to gossip. When we think about fire, right? If we have like a fire, there's a nice controlled fire, right? Where you can add a little bit of wood and then the fire stays nice and contained. But if you lose control of that fire, literally whole forests can like burn down. Whole ecosystems, whole just neighborhoods, houses, homes can be affected because we weren't able to control the situation. And I think one thing that God challenges us to do is when we're faced with situations where there is gossip going around, whether it's about someone we know or someone we don't know, I think it's so important we're able to shut down those situations. There can be so many situations that can be saved if we join in, or not join in, but stop the spread of gossip. Stop the spread of lies. Stop the spread of half stories. Because I know there's so many people in this room that have been affected by gossip, that have been affected by he said, she said, that have been affected by because that person said this person about that person. We've all been affected by that. And again, if we use that same fire analogy, it can ruin whole lives. It can ruin whole families. It can ruin whole situations. And I think it's so important for us as Christians to understand that we have the power and we have the ability to shut those down if we're wise with what we say and how we go about saying, or how we go about handling those gossip type situations. So my last point, and then we're going to get out of here and go to groups, because I feel like when we talk about the importance of words, I want to challenge you guys to talk in your groups. I said my first point was say less, and that's what I'm trying to do up here, because I want to make sure the truth just stays the truth and we get to stick on what the word says. But my last point is speak life. Is speak life. And we're going to read one more Proverbs verse, Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. It says, "The tongue has the power of life and death. Those who love it will eat its fruit." So in this verse, some of you guys have heard this verse before, about the power our tongues have, the power of our words have. They have the power of life and death. And what I mean by that, maybe the better way for you guys to understand the power of that, we could either speak positivity in our situations or we could speak negativity in our situations. Pay attention up here, my guy, right here, Gio, thanks. Yeah, just saying, what you doing? But we have the ability to speak life and speak death in our situations, in our friendships. I think it's so important for us to understand that. We can speak life and build up our friend. We can encourage our friend. When they're feeling bad, we can tell them they can lean on us. We can tell them they can trust on us. We can encourage them. We can tell them to push forward. We can tell them to keep going, pushing them and bringing life to their situations. But in the same way, we can tear them down and we can bring death to their situation. And I don't mean literal physical death, but a death of hope, a death of trust, a death of grace, a death of love. We have the power to do that with our words. And I think it's so important for us to control our words and understand that God calls us to speak life, to speak positivity into the people around us, to speak positivity into our families, into our friends, and to every single person we interact with. God challenges us to speak life. So what I want to challenge you guys with, and I'm gonna close out. I'm gonna say those one again. Say less, seek full truth, and speak life. And what I want you guys to do is just bow your heads. And I want to challenge you guys to be a part of the change that's needed. Be a part of the change that's needed in this world where there's too many people that are saying stuff that they don't really believe, or saying stuff that are harmful, or being a part of spreading gossip, or whatever that is. But I believe you guys as young people can be an answer to that problem. And if you're willing and bold enough to be a part of that solution, I just want you to raise your hand really quick, and then you can shoot it right back down. Because I just want to see those people who are willing to step up to that challenge. Step up to that challenge of being able to speak life into the people around us. Being people who can stop the spread of lies. Being people who can understand the impact and the power of their words. So for those of you guys who raise your hand, I want to pray for you, because it's easier said than done. Again, we talked about this idea of cliches. It's easy to say we're going to speak life. It's easy to say we're going to stay positive. It's easy to say we're going to stop spreading lies or stop being a part of that, but it's way harder to put into practice. So I'm going to pray for you guys as well as myself to step up to that challenge. And we're just going to pray in this moment. God, first and foremost, thank you for every single person in this room. But God, in this moment, there's some people in this room who see the spreading of lies. They see this challenge of how words can be so damaging and it can hurt people. They can literally ruin lives. They can ruin relationships. But even more so than that, God, they can ruin hope. They can ruin love. They can ruin all the incredible stuff you want us to have as we're on this earth. But God, there's some people in this room who want to step up to the challenge and understand that they can impact this world with their words. Not just the words that they say, but they can impact their group chats. They can impact their social media platforms. They can impact their families, their friends, with the power of their words. And God asks that you give them the boldness to speak out against gossip, to speak out against lies, to speak out against hate, to speak out against anything that is not of you. Because God, as they do that, they get to spread your love. They get to spread your hope. They get to spread all that stuff that this world so desperately needs. And especially as we head into the summer, God, I ask that people understand also the words that they carry when they speak about themselves. Understand the same way our words have life and power when it comes to what we say about others. It also has life and power about what we say about ourselves. So God, I ask that you also help them speak positively about ourselves, and trusting in ourselves, and trusting not in just ourselves, but trusting in your love for us. And God, we thank you in advance for what you're going to do this summer, and thank you in advance for those people who are going to step up to the plate and step up to the challenge of using their words to spread your glory. God, and it's your precious name that we pray. Amen.